I'd like to do a little video review about the new kid in town, uh, page builder like, but called Bricks. Um, I want to do an in-depth look into each element that Bricks has, for example, the headings and things like that, but more the overall look and feel and my opinion on that. First of all, Bricks, as opposed to what many people believe, and I did believe as well before buying it, is that so, sorry, the Bricks is not a plugin. Bricks is a theme. So that can be a deal breaker for some people. Okay. So no, it's not a plugin. It's not like Elementor, for example, that you where you have a theme and then you add the plugin, the builder to it. It's really a theme that comes with a builder. So in that regard, it's more similar to, well, some people might say to Oxygen, that, but it's not exactly the same thing because Oxygen completely replace the theme. So it's probably more like, for example, Avada that is a team and has its own builder, a diffusion builder that we can replace with another one in this case, but and probably Bricks as well, by the way. But it's similar to that. It's really a theme. It's a lightweight theme, pretty good for performance, but it's a theme. So it has its good and bad things. For example, of course, if you want to replace the theme, then you will lose all the settings of the builder itself. And as we'll see later on, Bricks has a kind of a solution for that, if we can say it like that. But still, this is a possibility. For example, it has happened to me in the past that the developer stopped developing or updating the theme or the plugin. So we're stuck with that. We want to update. We cannot update anymore, or it doesn't support the new version of WordPress. And we need to move to another one. And of course, sometimes we need to rebuild the site entirely from scratch. So like I said, Bricks has a little fallback for that. We'll talk about that later, but it's still a possibility. But at the same time, there are some advantages to that in the sense that it's light. You don't have to worry about choosing a theme, especially if you're used to, for example, Oxygen or Elementor Pro with the theme builder, where you use the theme builder to create the header, footer, and so on. So that way you don't have to worry about that because, of course, it's the same thing. So you don't have to manipulate both a theme and a plugin yeah, which is the page builder itself. So that being said, it's a theme, but if you look, for example, at the customizer, you will see that customizer is pretty basic. It doesn't add anything to the default customizer, not more than any default WordPress theme that you have. So the only thing maybe that you want to change there, site title and tagline, of course, is when you set up the site. But probably the site icon, that's the only place that I saw that I can change it. Maybe there's another place that I didn't see. But that's probably about the only thing that you're going to want to come and change here in the customizer itself. All the rest will be done inside Bricks itself. So Bricks will add a menu for you here. You have the getting started, which is where it's going to take you, by the way, as soon as you install the theme, as soon as you activate it. And of course, you can, there's a lot of instructions here that you can follow, how to use it, how to use templates and so on. So of course, we're going to go through some of them, but you will have more details by going through those features. And I think it's been a while since I installed it, but I think you have a wizard also at the beginning to help you to go through different steps to import a new template. I'm not sure about that though. It's been a while since I installed it. I'm going to skip the templates for now. I'm going to go directly to the settings. So the settings, by default, well, of course, we have different tabs. By default, the general one, as you can see, only the page or pages are using Bricks, the Bricks editor, the Bricks page builder, if we can say it like that. And that's the recommended way of using it. Because, of course, what they want you to do, what is the best way to use it, is to simply use Bricks to create the theme structure, so the header, footer, maybe sidebar, and so on, and simply use the WordPress editor, Guttenberg, to create the content, only the content part that is usually pretty simple. If you have more advanced content and Guttenberg is not enough, then of course you can also check the post here, and the the bricks editor will be available for that as well. Of course, you don't have to use it. You can still use both of them. Some pages using Guttenberg and others using bricks. Sorry, I haven't slept too much last night. Sorry, but anyway, by default it's only for pages. And of course, if you have custom post type and so on, they're going to appear there as well, so you can add that for them as well. Second section, Guttenberg Data. This is not enabled by default, okay? And this is where you're going to be able to decide what will happen if you get rid of bricks. As I mentioned previously, you build everything inside of bricks. If you build your pages inside of bricks, when you change the theme, what will happen is that you're going to lose all the content. Now, to prevent that, they decided to add those two options, okay? So the second one is the one that is most interesting. It allows you to save the data, the content that you create in Brick, into a Guttenberg data. In other words, if you get rid of the template, the theme, sorry, you will always have the content available. Of course, you will lose the layout and things like that, the colors and style and so on, but the content will still be there. And it's like that with every builder, by the way. For example, if you remove Elementor, you still have the content, but not formatted. So it's like that with many builder. But at least it won't leave you with a bunch of shortcodes or things like that. So that's a good thing. If you don't check that, you're going to have empty pages, of course. So my assumption is that it kind of doubles in a certain way the content. So of course, might add a little bit to the weight, not necessarily the end page, by the way, but only in the database. But still, it's a good thing. And what I found out is that you don't have to enable that right away. You can go and just build your site, build your pages with bricks. And once you want to move to another one, let's say it like that, you just come here, enable that option. And I guess you will have to go through each of the pages and resave them to enable the data, but that's about it. Okay, you don't have to make any change, just resave them. Of course, if it's a small site, 5 to 10 pages, that's not a problem at all. If it's a big site, then you might want to enable that right away. Okay, it's really up to you. The first checkbox is a little bit the opposite. If you already have content in Guttenberg and you want to be able to open the brick and already have that content and go and style it, use it, then you're going to use that load Guttenberg data. If it's a new site, it's less useful, but of course, if you move from, let's say, post pages, you want to enable that later on and you already have some post, then it's a good idea to have that as well. Finally, in that section, you have the Svg Upload, which is disabled by default in WordPress, but here you can enable it for specific roles. For example, usually administrator. So only administrator and maybe editors can upload SVG files, because there are some risks with SVG files. By the way, that's why they're not enabled by default in WordPress. Some people might put some code for hacking or things like that. So make sure that your source is good. Second option here, the builder access. So we have that in many page builder nowadays, where we can restrict the access to some type of users, let's say. So the administrator will always have full access, but for all the others, you can decide whether they have no access at all to the builder. So if you have Guttenberg, of course, they'll be able to make changes in Guttenberg, but not the brick editor. You can allow them to have only edit content, so they'll be able to change images, change the text, but not change the layout, not change the fonts, not change, for example, the 2 column into 1 column and so on. So not break out the site in a certain way. And you have, of course, full access, which is the same as the administrator, which has the full builder. So this is a good thing if you are working with clients and so on. Templates, we're going to talk about templates later on, but you can decide whether the template is public And I have an example of that here. For example, I had created a template and I wasn't able to test it with GTmetrix because by default, when you try to access the template right away directly, it will simply redirect you to the home page. So by enabling that to be public, I was able to put a link to it and therefore use it for testing in GTmetrix. And that's just one example. So it really depends on whether you want the people that visit your site to be able to go directly to that link. Of course, in my case, I would probably test it and then disable that, but it's just a demo site anyway. You can disable the default template, by the way, by default. If you have a header and a footer enabled and just one enabled, it will take them. But it's really recommend that you go inside the conditions. We'll talk about that later and set the conditions for them there instead. So that's why it's disabled by default. My template accessed. So you can enable that. This is a cool thing. I didn't test it, but you can enable, if you have multiple sites, to have access to your templates from another site. So if you check that, you can put all the links to the that have access to this website, and you can put a password, and therefore they're going to be able to, or the other sites are going to be able to take the content when you open the templates. We're going to see that later. They're going to have access to those elements, the sections, for example, that you have created. And as the same thing here, to have access to the remote one, if you decide that it needs to have access to the other one, this is where you're going to put that, the URL and the password. Builder itself, some options here. So you can disable the autosave, which I don't necessarily recommend. Of course, the interval is to 60 seconds. Each 60 seconds is going to autosave the page. Good thing. The minimum is 15, if you enable that, of course. Builder mode is dark, and I think that's the default, and that's what I like. I really like to have the dark mode enabled personally. And the toolbar logo link, I'm going to show you that later, but you have a logo at the top bar, top left. And when you click on it, what you want to do. So by default, it's going to preview the page in the browser, but you can go to the home page, you can edit in WordPress or do nothing. Performance, more and more tools allow you to do that. So disable some default WordPress things like emojis, embeds, and so on. That will, of course, remove some weight, some JavaScript from the page, and that will allow you to have a better performance using that. Of course, some caching plugins will allow you to do that as well, but I'm going to show you the performance of that page without any caching plugin enabled. API keys, if you want to link to external API like Mailchimp, like Unsplash, etc., you have it there. And custom code, this is where you can put your own CSS code that will be applied into the entire site, the header script, body, header script, and footer script. So if you want to have JavaScript there, you can put it there. For example, Google Analytics code. So you can put that right there, and it's going to be available for all the site. You have that for page-by-page pages and templates as well, of course. Custom fonts, don't have any in my case, but you can have any custom fonts that you have downloaded from a font provider website. So this is where you would do that. Sidebar, you can easily create a new sidebar. I'm going to delete that one. All you have to do, there's always a sidebar by default. Let me just show that to you. If I go to my widgets, we have a sidebar by default. That's the default sidebar with all the default usual WordPress content inside of it. But you can create your own sidebar easily as well. I really like that feature. If I do that again, description is optional, but demo sidebar. And you can create as many as you want. You see it here, you can delete it. And of course, when you go to the widget, then you have that sidebar that appears here where you can add any content to it. And of course, then you have to integrate it. I'm going to show you how to do that later on in the builder itself. System status is just information. Of course, you will notice that by default, they ask you to have at least 64 megabytes of memory. so which is not the default with WordPress. You might need to change that. But I had less than that at first, and it was still working in the same way. So make sure you have everything all right. And of course, we have the license. Once you have installed, of course, the theme, it's going to ask you for the license. It's going to take you directly to that page here. You just put the license, activate it, and that's all. Now, let's go back to the template section that we skipped. Right, so to go faster, I've already created some templates for testing and so on. But the way to create them, pretty easy. Of course, you can import template that you have created previously. You can add a new one. Once you add a new one, you simply put a title to it. And you have the choice here to decide which type of template that you need. But when you click edit, well, when you click publish first, you need to publish it. And you edit the template, it's going to ask you the template type anyway if you didn't put it on the right side. So you have the choice between a header, a footer. These are pretty basic things. The content itself, so it can be a template with just some content that you want to put somewhere or on every page. You decide a condition. A section itself that you can reuse in many pages. The archive page, for example, for the blog post. And the search result when you have a search and you see the result. There's one that is missing here. That's what I was hesitant. In the top drop down on the right side, so maybe that's something forgotten here, or it assimilates that to another one. You have the error page as well, so for a 404 page. So I don't know why it's not in that drop down here, but you also have for error pages as well. So anyway, let's say if I go with the header one, I already have a header here that is set to be displayed everywhere. So of course it makes no sense, but just to show you what we can do. Okay, I'm currently editing the one that I already have. So my mistake, I'm gonna go back and change that. I'm gonna build that error page as I mentioned. So that way you're gonna see it. So that header page is visible everywhere. So let's forget about that for now. Header and footer. We have a section here and it looks really similar to Elementor for those of you who know about that. We have the help icon here. We have a plus to add a new section, and we have, of course, the little folder where we can add a new template. So it can be a template that you have created from this site, from another site, as we mentioned previously, or it can be some template from the community. For now, it's probably only from the Bricks developers, but at some point it might have more than that. Don't forget, if you import something, to toggle that on if you want to have the images. And of course, you can replace the entire content if you want to. If not, it's going to be added to what you already have. There's no close button, by the way, so just click on the side and it's going to close. Now you can click on that little plus button to add a new section, and from there you can drag elements. You'll see that you have different color toolbar or icons here. Again, the pencil is pretty similar to other builders that you're used to, but you will always have at least a section, inside of it a row, and of course a column. So you have already 3 levels of divs in a certain way that you have. And sections are always by default box, so you need to specify it if you want to have it full width, even for background colors, as opposed to, for example, Elementor, that will put the background color on the entire width, even if it's boxed. So, of course, the way that it works is by using drag and drop elements. So if I drag and drop my title here, for example, I can change the text here, or I can change it right directly on the page itself. Can change my tag here. Let's say it's an H2. And you have some different types that you can, I'm going to show that to you later, but you can predefine. These are already predefined, but you can change the style. And I guess, I didn't test it, but I guess you can add your own as well. Same thing for the styles here. I'm going to talk about that later on. And we can have a link to another page, an external page, and so on. as well. So if I say internal page, it's going to allow us to select a specific page. For example, let's say to the sample page and so on. So won't go through all of the details, like I said, of each and every element. Just want to show that to you pretty general. In this, of course, panel here, in this window, I should say, we have the top bar here at the top. All those buttons here are part of the toolbar, but at the top bar, sorry, but we're going to talk about that later on, except maybe the logo that we have set, if you remember, sorry, to be the preview of the page and the actual browser window. I didn't save it, so there's absolutely no content right now. I would need to save it first. So we're going to come back to those buttons later on because it has to do with this bar at the left at the same time. We have here the responsive designs. So they're not the one that you used to maybe with Elementor or maybe other page builder. We have the desktop, of course. What we have greater or lower than 992, so up to 991 pixel. Then we have mobile landscape, which is lower than 768. Not 768, lower than that. In other words, up to, like it says here, 767. So an iPad will not be this layout. It will be this layout for an iPad. But now we're in that because it's 991. So that's a little bit strange, honestly. I'm used to have at least 3, which is desktop, kind of iPad and the like for tablets, and then mobiles. So in this particular case, it's not for the iPad, it's a big phone or a landscape phone. iPad will be this one, but narrower, like I said, and we have mobile. And we can toggle them, by the way, by using the Control or Command key and B. Control Command B will enable us to toggle from one to the other. And we can always type here as well. So 768, let's say. And then I will see exactly how it would look like on an iPad, for example, in portrait. Then we have the traditional undo and redo. And by the way, it supports the keyboard shortcut for Control-Z, Control-Y, Control-S for save, and so on. We have help. We have the templates here. So if I click on that, we see all the available templates that I've already created, no matter the type. We can filter them by type, sections, and so on. And of course, we can import a new one from community and so on, as I mentioned previously. Or we can go directly to one to edit it as well with that little button. So we can move from one to the other. And that's one of the goals, by the way, of bricks, is that you stay in the builder and you don't have to always go back to WordPress and select another page and so on. So I can always edit that one directly from here, that section here, directly from this place. And if I want to go to another one, I can go edit my header, for example, directly from there. And if it's a page, I'm going to show you as well how to do that, but from another place. We have the edit on WordPress. That brings us back to the WordPress dashboard editor. We have the preview, so we can click on that to preview it in that builder. And sometimes, honestly, it's not 100% accurate. I'm going to show you an example later on. But then you can also go back by clicking the eye icon again or open in a new window. Then you'll have the real deal, like we say. Which is the same thing by default as clicking on, if you remember, clicking on the logo as well. And finally, we have the save button. You can use Control S or the save button right there. So now the interface that we have, of course, we have the bar on the top bar. We have the panel on the left side by default that you can always change, by the way. So you need to have one option enabled. For example, here it won't work. But if I select the structure, for example, the first icon here, then I can come where my title is and click and drag and have it as either a floating panel, if you prefer that, or have it dock at the right side instead of the left side if you desire so. So these are the options for the panel. the left panel by default. And of course, in the center or the right section is what we call the canvas. This is where you will build the page itself or the template itself. One thing that is pretty cool, we're going to go with all those elements later on, but let's go with the elements here. If I click on plus or add any element, you're going to have that panel here. One of the cool things that I really like is that if you use something quite often, we have, of course, the basic here that is pretty much used everywhere. But if you, for example, use often, I don't know, the audio player or things like that, you can always come here, and as you see, there's a little pin icon that appears. You can click on that and it's going to appear at the top. All your pinned elements will appear at the top of the panel, so no need to scroll to go and get them. This is similar to what we have in Thrive Architect, by the way. So this is pretty cool if you are using often the only 3, 4, 5 same things without having to. Of course, you can always filter by searching here. So for example, I don't know, heading. But still, if you always use the same ones, pretty good to pin them, and you can always click on it to unpin it later on if you want to. So of course, just like it looks pretty similar to Elementor. You have all sections, and it's a drag and drop editor. So you simply click and drag it to the place you want to place it. Okay. And of course, then you can edit the content itself. When you drag something, you should have the properties right away. But when something else is selected, as you can see, if I click on something else, it doesn't change my selection here. And that's one of the drawbacks maybe of this builder for now. Anyway, I saw that some people were complaining about that. You really need to click on the little pencil icon to move from one item to the other. So that can be a little bit annoying because sometimes you might think that if I click on it, like Elementor, for example, you will have the properties of that element, but it's not the case. You really need to click on the pencil. So maybe that will change at some point, but that's it. That's how it is for now, version 1.0. So the element is always the green bar, by the way, and you have the column in blue, the row in kind of pink, my English. And you have yellow, which is a kind of dark gold, which is the section itself. Similar to Divi, I think, in that regard. All right, so let's say, for example, if I want to edit the section. So you have a lot of options. We won't go through all of them. You have all the layout, which is the margin, padding, the width, and so on. Everything is put into layout, positioning as well, absolute positioning, and so on. So that's pretty cool. And of course, you have options for each element, rows in this case, but sometimes columns and others. So you have pretty much all the options that you need right there. You have everything that goes with text in the typography section. The font family, the font transform, size, and so on. Color as well. By the way, working with colors, you have different colors here. You can work in X, RGB, or HSL. You have a default panel, and you can create your own panel by clicking on that little plus here. You can create your own panel and put the colors there. So as soon as you select a color, let's say here, I can just leave it like that, or I can click on save and it's going to add it to my current panel. What I found out though, and I don't know if it's by purpose or if it's a bug, but each time that you, for example, if I come back here, it's going to be demo. But if I click on something else and want to change the color, it's always, oh no, that's for the icon, sorry. Let's go with the style here. Typography. It's always going to go back to the default one. And if this course, of course, you might say, well, of course, you already have a color applied. No, even for new elements, it always go back to the default. So I don't know if there's a way to set the other one as, you see the list view here, by the way, to set the list as being something else than the default one, the one that you have created. If not, I guess that the easiest way would be to remove the colors and simply add new. But I didn't find any way, by the way, to delete the colors. For example, I say if you click clear, of course, it's going to get rid of the color here, but not in the panel. I have two white colors here because I clicked on save thinking that we were saving the change that I made. But in fact, I was saving the color. And I didn't see any way, right click or any button to get rid of that color. Tried to drag and drop it. Didn't work, as you can see. Simply selects things. So I didn't find any way to remove a color that has already been added to the panel. So a couple of little things like that. When we edit, we simply edit the names, so it doesn't help that way either. So this is something to be added, in my opinion, a way to, first of all, to remove the color, but a way also to determine what is the default panel, the default color panel, because I don't like to have to always come back and change that to have the colors that we need for each element that we had. So that's pretty daunting here. What else? Of course, we have many items. Like I said, I won't go through all of them. We have the basic ones. I'm going to show you a couple of more advanced ones later on. I'm editing a template right now, but you can always use the builder to edit pages. You can come to the pages section here, and you will see all the pages that you have right now where you can that you can use. By the way, in the drop down here, you see only pages because if you remember in my settings, only pages was activated. But if I activate it for post and other custom post type, I can filter by those type of pages as well, or content. I can also add a new page from there. So let's say a demo. I'm going to create a page, and then I can click on that. And now I'm editing that particular page. As you can see, if I click here, it shows me that I'm editing the page. So that's a good thing. The structure here. So let me add a new element here. Let's say a text. When I click on the first button here, beside the icon, of course, I see the structure of the page itself. So by default, it's a section. We always have a row, like I mentioned, and a column, and then you have the content itself. So you see the entire structure here, and you can click on any element to go directly to edit it instead of going with those buttons here. And of course, if you have many items, you're going to see all of that in this place here. You can also rename it, by the way. It's a good ID. So I don't know, our services section and so on. So doesn't change anything on the front end, of course, but helps you to manage your things. So if I clone the section, for example, and this other one will be team and so on. One of the drawback of that panel, first of all, if I put my little 2 cents here, I'm used to the Elementor's navigator. So we have the elements on one side, and you have the floating navigator that you can dock on the right side. So that way you always have quick access to it. Right now with this palette here, it's really daunting because you have to go there, you have to select the element, and then it goes back here. And if you go there later, you have a little button here, by the way, to expand everything quickly so that you can target the element right away. But unfortunately, when you go back, it's always closed again. You need to click on that again when you have a lot of content and then scroll to the place where you want to go. So that can be pretty long. So another suggestion, add the structure panel separated, first of all. And secondly, if you expand, keep it expanded. Please don't close it again when you come back. Next button, the overstyle. That's pretty strange to have it as a separate element like that, but it's by purpose and it can please some people. So let's say, for example, if I go to edit my header and I edit that button here. So this is my regular or default. You have the content tab or section, by the way, and you always have the style tab or section. So if I have my background color, for example, this is for the default state. If I want to have the overstate, I'm going to click on that, and then I can go and change my elements here. I didn't test if everything was editable or only some elements like the background color, the text color, and things like that. But I would assume that everything that is there could be edited for the overstyle only, but the developer could confirm. So don't forget to always switch back to the regular state. And you cannot preview it like that, by the way. You really have to go to the preview mode to preview your effect. So this is for basic thing. We have the pages. We have the revision here. You can always go back to a previous state. You can select one and it's going to show you what was done. Okay. And you can say apply this if you want to keep that version instead. You can remove all revisions as well. You have the settings panel here. In the settings here, this is the settings for the page, of course. So the first thing, the theme styles. I'm used to, if you use like me in Elementor, you have newer versions, you have more styles than previously. But I was starting to use a plugin called Style Kit. So it's pretty similar to that in the sense that you can create your own style. You can even export it and import it and so on from site to site. So that's basically a style kit integrated into Bricks. And Bricks integrates a lot of things. It's almost similar to Elementor Pro itself in that regard. Same thing here, by the way, for example, for the, I don't know, if you want to have some margin, you can just drag and drop some margin or padding in this case. So you can do that like that. Of course, pretty strange in this case. Gonna apply that. But I'm using for Elementor, I'm using a plugin called Design Your Power Up. But some other tools like Oxygen, for example, will have that. And most builder will have that by default these days. So margin here or inside padding. And it's not pretty clear in this case because of the background image, but you have a little icon chain here that is broken. That means that you only change this side here. You can click on that once and then you will change the opposite side. So in this case, top and bottom. And you can click on it again and you will change the 4 sides at the same time. So that can be pretty cool. I'm used to use a keyboard shortcut in other builder for that, but this is one way that you can do that as well with this builder here. So a good thing. So theme styles. You have some by default. You have the default one. You have a couple of pre-built there as well. And of course, you can create your own by clicking that little plus button, and you can create your own theme style. Now, don't do as I did. I created all my theme styles. Everything was working perfectly fine in the preview, the builder, and even the preview here. But when I was going to my actual page, it wasn't. For example, all my headings are uppercase, and it wasn't the case when I went to the page itself. That's because you must absolutely select a condition. So once you have set that, you must decide where you want to apply this theme style. So by default, you have the choice, of course, of the entire website. You can specify the front page or different type of posts and so on. So you have a lot of conditions here. You can select an individual page and then select the page or the post and so on. You can have more than one. So you need to decide where you want to apply that first, because of course, if you don't do so, it will not be applied in the front end. Now, let's say the entire website, and then you have all the settings that you can change. And these are globals to the entire page, not the site itself. But of course, if you put that into a theme style and you apply that theme style to every page, then of course, like the entire website here, of course it's going to be applied everywhere. So that keeps the site, first of all, lighter, and of course it prevents you from having to apply that same style to every header that you do or things like that. So that's pretty good. And you have a lot of things. You can see the general one, which is the site layout, the width, and so on. Then you have all the colors that you can set, primary color, secondary color, and then you have a bunch of light colors and so on. What I miss here, if the developer ever sees that video, first of all, a way to rename those, because what is muted color doesn't mean anything for me. So I would like to rename that to something else. And I would like to add my own colors as well. So for example, button color. I would call that button color and put it a color and then apply that color to my buttons, which is, by the way, all general colors that are applied everywhere, global colors that are applied everywhere. So that way, if you just change the primary color, for example, to something else, everywhere that you apply the primary color will have that color. And if you ever come back here and just change that color here, everywhere that uses it will be changed at the same time. So that's why it's pretty good to use that, but I would like to have more flexibility in terms of adding and removing colors or renaming them. Content, you have the width, you have the margin, and so on. Links, the look of the links by default. General typography, so we have the body text. And these are the same options that we have for each individual element, by the way, but it's just that you do that for the entire elements at the same time. All the headings at the same time. So for example, if you want all the headings to be, I don't know, uppercase, you don't have to set it for each and every level. You just do that for all headings. And let's say 600 and so on. And then, of course, you have each heading individually if something, a color or something else is different for a specific heading level. Hero and lead that you saw in the drop down. We have a drop down where we have text where we can use those two. So they are already predefined, but you can change the style here. And then you have pretty much every basic element in the elements panel that you can come and style here, testimonial, text, and so on. So this is pretty advanced, pretty comfortable, or pretty, I won't say proud because I'm not the one who developed it, but I really like that feature here. It's pretty advanced. So this is for the theme styles. If I go back to my settings here, we have the page settings. So this is just for that specific page. So general here, nothing in this case because of course that's a header. So let's move to a specific page. Let's say, go back to my landing page. And page settings here. So you have the whether you want to disable the header on the footer or not for that particular page. If you want to use a one-page navigation, you want to show the navigation and then control that. You have the SEO, so no need necessarily to have another SEO plugin. So you can put the permalink, the title, you can use a meta description and so on, all directly from here. Social media, you can have your social media with icons. And some custom code. So I told you that you can add your own CSS and JavaScript on a page-by-page basis. This is where you would do that. If I go back to my template, let's say landing page template. Because at the beginning I had saved it as a template. You see that you have the template settings as well. So the conditions where you want to apply that template. For example, if it's a general template for blogs, you can add that to all the blogs elements. So the post type, let's say, and posts, and so on. And you have the populate content. I didn't check that one. Okay, so that's kind of a preview here. The archive, for example, if you want a specific author, and you can apply that here to preview how it would look like when you create the template. So that's a good thing. Again, I'm used to work with that with Elementor in my case. So that's about it for that section. Let me show you, like I said, I wanted to, I'm going to go to the pages themselves, my demo page, let's say. And I want to show you a couple of more advanced things. Like, for example, we have a form builder here. So that's pretty cool. So, of course, you have each field, the type of field that it is, the label that you put, and the placeholder, the text inside here. You can set it to be required or not. You can change the percentage. For example, if we put 50% here and 50% for the second one as well. So that way they are side by side. And you can add, of course, other fields as well. Then you can decide whether you want to show the labels or not. So never, by the way, never say just delete the text on the label, because it's there for accessibility purpose. So if you don't want to show the label, simply leave it by default. It's disabled, but if you want to show them, just toggle that on. But don't necessarily just remove the label text itself. Whether you want to show the required asterisk that is there inside the text. And then, of course, we have the styling and so on. Submit button. So the look of the submit button, the text on it, and so on. And then actions. So if you're used to the Elementor Pros form, it's going to be pretty similar, where you can decide by default email is enabled and you have the email option here. But you can click here and add other options like Mailchimp, for example, and maybe some others. And then you will have the section appears as soon as you select something. And then you can toggle that and populate those options to where you want to send it and so on. And Mailchimp here, same thing. You need, first of all, to go into the API settings and, of course, enter your API key and so on. But that's no different than another tool like Elementor, for example, for that. And you also have the spam protections here, again, in the API section. So the reCAPTCHA, so on. So that's great there again. Let me show you, though, that sometimes it's not that easy. I don't know. I feel that, honestly, overall, that it's a great tool, but it's a little bit, it's just out of beta, and in my mind, it's still in beta, to be quite honest. There are few bugs here and there. First of all, let me give you an example here. If it does the same thing that it did to me previously, we have the Facebook page here. So I bring the Facebook page, it shows me the default Facebook page, but I come here and I replace it with mine, Leo Media Web. And you see here, press enter to apply and render the URL. I press enter, and nothing happens. Doesn't change anything here. All right. I go to the preview mode, still not change. Even on the full page mode, well, didn't save it, so let me save it first, of course. So if I preview it, still using the same Facebook page. Strange. I go back on it here, and it's still Facebook. So I don't know what's going on. Really a bug here. So this setting, this element here is not working at all, at least on my side. So this is something that you can check, of course. And there are some little bugs here and there. For example, let me give you another example here of things that well, not necessarily a bug, but I hope that it's going to be changed, corrected. Let's say, for example, I have a section like that with some images inside of it, and I want to copy that entire row. Let's copy that last one. So I move over here, I click clone row, and it duplicates it. Okay, right now it did it the right way. Well, okay. Let's see if it's going to do that again. All right, don't know what's going on this morning. Everything works fine. But in all my testing, it was copying the element, but the image was not visible at all. So there was no way to click on it to change the image. So I don't know why it's working today, but it wasn't the last time. And of course, since I was not able to select it, I had to go to the structure here and expand everything and then choose the right image to be able to select it and then be able to change the image. So I know that I have a blocker here that I just deactivated. So maybe that's the reason. So if it's the reason, pardon me, don't blame the plugin itself. But let me just re-enable it just for testing. So everybody will know whether it's on my side or if it's a random bug. Okay, so even if with that enable, so something has changed during the night or I don't know, it works this morning, but it wasn't yesterday. So anyway, if you want to delete something, of course, make sure you delete the right thing, but you need to click twice. You click once and it's gonna kind of, it's not really clear here, but you see that little sure just underneath my cursor. So you need to click once and then click the little checkbox or the little check mark to confirm that you really want to delete. So a little bit longer, but at the same time, it's a protection just in case you clicked on it by mistake. So I do believe that it's better to be more cautious. So I like that feature. So as you can see here, my section is not the entire width, it's blocked by default. So if I go and here, but change my background color, as I mentioned already, or even an image, it's not going to take, the color will not take the entire width. If you use a tool like Elementor, for example, like I am, you'll use that the content is blocked, but the background color in images take the entire width. But since now we're using section, but rows and columns as well, we have the row that takes care of that in a certain way. So you can go and expand the section to be, for example, here 100%. And then you can set the row to be a specific width. So for example, the default width here would be, I don't know, 1200. You see, by the way, a little explanation here. When you set a width, it's going to always be left aligned. So if you want to have that centered, you simply go to the margin here. And as soon as you will put, well, first of all, I'll need to unlink it. And as soon as you will put a value, let's say 0 at top, those become automatically auto. So you see now it's already centered. We cannot type auto, but if we leave it empty, it's going to be auto simply. Okay, so if you want to, you can put bottom as well. But if you leave the left and right empty, it's going to be simply auto. So that means that it's going to be centered. Another annoying bug is the delete key. I don't know if it's by purpose or if it's a bug, but I really hate that. Let's say, for example, I want to get rid of that here. So I'm going to select that and I hit delete and boom. Wow, what happened? I didn't delete that data or that number. I deleted the entire section. Now I need to undo sometimes 2, 3, 4 times to get back with my element here. Wow, not even. Maybe that's because I didn't save, but it's not even reappearing here. Usually it does reappear after a couple of times. So you see, it's a little bit dangerous here. And that happened to me so often. Usually I can undo that. I don't know why it's not working here. But anyway, it's really, 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 really annoying. I never cursed, but I was cursing yesterday, to be honest. I never seen something like that. You click on something, you try to change the padding, for example, to change it or to get rid of it, and boom, you get rid of the entire column. Wow, what's that? Okay, so you really need to use, for example, the backspace key instead of the delete key, and then it works. But never use the delete key, at least for now. And I hope that the developer will change that because it makes no sense for me We double check here that you really want to delete the thing, but we don't when we use the delete key. Makes no sense for me. So hopefully they're gonna fix it. But that pretty much changed my overall feeling for that plugin. Honestly, for that theme, I should say. One other thing that I want to mention before my conclusion is the capability. It works out of the box with, I didn't test it, but with WooCommerce, it works out of the box. And it also works with custom post types like ACF, MetaBox, and a couple of others. So for example, if I go to, I have created, and I think I disabled it. Let me just go there to see. I want to go to my dashboard and re-enable my ACF. And I have created a custom field for my page just to show you a demo. So for example, on my landing page here, of course, it won't appear in bricks. You really need to open the page here and come fill out the text here. But let me put some text here. And I'm going to update my page. And you see, by the way, because I have my checkbox checked for the Guttenberg editor, that the content is still there. Of course, not formatted, but I will do that with my other theme or plugin if I ever do that. Now, if I come back to my my page, now am I editing the page itself? And I think so. Yeah, I'm gonna edit the landing page this time. I can come here and insert a new element, let's say text, below my title here. And then everywhere you have that little kind of light bolt icon, which is dynamic data. So you can use that to insert any dynamic data, for example, the page title and so on. And you see that it's going to put kind of a shortcode with opening and closing curly brackets. So you can put that manually as well, of course, if you want to. But in this particular case, I want to get rid of everything and simply replace that. And you see that my SCF field is right there. So I'm going to replace that with my intro text. So you see it doesn't render it visually and even doesn't render it when you click on preview mode. But when you preview it on the real page, you're going to see that it's working. So works with some predefined fields like users, post types, and so on, and also all the custom fields with some builder. You told me that the toolset is not yet supported. That's the one that I use, but it's planned. So, but anyway, ACF pods, MetaBox, they're all supported. So my overall feeling about this builder, I really liked it. My first impression is pretty good. There are some drawbacks, like I said, the delete key and things like that. So there are some tweaks that need to be done here and there, but it's the first version. So honestly, I would probably give it, if it wasn't for those bugs, I would probably give it a 9 or 9.5 out of 10. Seriously, that's a really good builder. Really cheap right now, $149 for a lifetime license. I think it's 1,000 or unlimited 1,000, I think. So that's pretty cheap. That's really good. It's a good builder. And for people like me that are used to Elementor, you're going to feel really comfortable. A lot of things are similar. People coming from Oxygen probably as well, though it's different. It's supposed to be lighter. I didn't really test it. You see here the performance, but of course that's a pretty small page. But you see performance is pretty high out of the box without any caching plugin. So that's really good. Of course, with all the bugs, I had to lower down my note a little bit. So hopefully with version 1.1 or 2, or even version 2, unfortunately, that will go back to that note. But right now, I would say it's more like 7.5 or 8. And honestly, the delete key bug for me was so frustrating that it could even be a 2 or 3 stars, honestly. But still. So I would say that it could be appealing to some Oxygen user, or of course, if you're new to a page builder, mostly Elementor user, because first of all, it has a lot of things that Elementor Pro has. The interface is similar, and of course, it's a one-time fee, at least for now. It's a one-time fee for lifetime. Of course, Elementor Pro is, I think, well, prices I've raised. I think it's now $200 for 25 sites, which is not what I pay, fortunately. But if you're new, then that's a really high price. So $149 for unlimited, it's really worth it. So again, would I use that? Personally, right now, possibly not because of the bugs. Because I have a pretty cheap Elementor subscription. I was one of the first. So I have a $99 per year for 1,000 sites for lifetime. As long as I renew anyway. If I was paying higher than that, maybe I wouldn't renew. So if all the bugs are ironed out, I would really be tempted to go with that one instead of Elementor. Though Elementor is really popular, so I would keep both probably, because of course Elementor has add-ons and some other features that this builder doesn't have for now. But the builder itself, with the theme itself, I would probably go with that with all the bugs removed. So pretty good builder. I would personally jump on it. I will surely keep my license, even though there are, like I said, some bugs and things like that. Some things that, if it stays like that, I might not use it, to be quite honest. But I'm going to give the developer a chance and expect him is really responding fast and so on to all the issues and all the questions. So if they are as fast and as prompt to squash the bugs and develop new features, it's going to be one of the best builder pretty soon. I'm pretty sure of that. Don't forget, it's still version 1. If you remember how Elementor or Oxygen was on version 1, well, or even Breezy Builder and so on. So that's pretty good. And like I said, many bugs might be solved pretty quickly. Maybe even when you watch this video, it's going to be the case. So after that, it's going to be even, it's going to be one of the best right now, and it's going to be, of course, improving with all the other versions. So definitely recommend it. But of course, keep something else on your sleeve right now because of the bugs. But pretty sure that they're going to be solved pretty quickly. So I hope this review was helpful to you. You can, of course, subscribe to my channel by clicking the little subscribe button and the little bell to be notified when there's new video. And, of course, comment below. Tell me whether you're going to buy it or not. Tell me how you find it if you bought it, if you really like it, or if you're going to refund because there's something that you don't like. What about the theme versus plugin thing, by the way? I know that for some people it's an issue. So what about you? Is it better that it's a theme, or it would be better if, like Divi, for example, we have both a theme for those who prefer a theme and a standalone builder for those who prefer the builder with a different theme? So please comment below, and of course, probably the developer himself will come and comment as well. And it really wants to shape the future of that plugin. And I have another plugin with him, by the way, API Files. And I can tell you, really cheap, really good, really responsive, and constantly improving it. So if the builder is nowhere near what he did with API Files, it's going to be really good. So thank you, and have a good day.